Unleashing the Rebel Within, audiobook by Lane Keller. Podcast by Lane Keller. Welcome to Phase 4, Crystalline Rebel. Awakening was never the destination, it was the invitation. This is where understanding becomes embodiment, where consciousness becomes a way of living, and where the rebel no longer struggles against the world, but begins creating from a higher state of awareness. The journey has never been about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you've always been. Phase 4, Crystalline Rebel. The greatest service one can offer is the radiance of the self. No words, no teachings, just the frequency of being. Synthesis of Ra, The Law of One, Sessions 10 through 12. Chapter 21, Love in the Time of Ascension. People often ask, what is spirituality? The truth is, there is no single answer. Spirituality is not a one-size-fits-all path. It was never meant to be. It's the evolving, intimate, often messy journey of developing your own relationship with supreme creation in whatever form that takes for you. That's personal spirituality. Recently, I went on an outing with a friend who brought along someone new. Before we met, my friend said, "Oh, you're going to love him. He's very spiritual." When I was introduced, the man immediately launched into a rundown of the church he used to run and then asked me bluntly, "What church do you go to?" Where do I go to be spiritual? I was caught off guard. Not offended, just surprised. I replied instinctively, "The church of me and God." It was a reflex, part defense, part truth. I don't go to a physical church. That question jolted me and I had to sit with it. Was I triggered because I expected more from someone labeled as very spiritual? Probably. It reminded me that for many people, spirituality is still equated with religious attendance. For some, to be spiritual is to belong to a structure, a doctrine, a building. To me, it's the opposite. Spirituality is a direct connection to God, the source. No gatekeepers, no robes, no rituals required, unless they're ones you choose. That source might be called God, Creator, Mother, Father, God, Prime Energy, the universe, is semantics. Some believe there are multiple godly beings of higher light under one vast originating source. Others prefer to relate to God as masculine or feminine. For me, source is genderless. It transcends polarity. Spirituality is about tuning into your highest, clearest self, the part of you who knows who you really are. You don't need to memorize scriptures or sit in pews to access this. You just need a quiet space, internally or externally, to listen. That listening becomes discernment. That discernment becomes inner freedom. The deeper you go, the more you awaken to your own connection to the infinite. That's the key. True spirituality is a quest for personal divinity. It's the slow, powerful recognition that you are a creator being, not a usurper of God, but an extension of source light, growing in coherence with it. We're not here to dominate or worship blindly. We're here to merge, to remember, and to reclaim our place within the supreme architecture. What we find on the other side of that quest is this. We are all fragments of the same whole, all divine, all connected, all mirroring one another through different lenses. Climbing the frequency ladder. Ascension isn't a physical destination. It's a state of being, one that fluctuates from moment to moment. When we talk about moving through dimensions, we're really talking about states of consciousness, degrees of awareness, and levels of energetic coherence. To deepen our earlier discussion, the dimensions aren't places you go, they're frequencies you become. In the densest reality, 3D, we experience separation, ego, material fixation, duality. As you begin to awaken, to shift, to recognize who you really are, you start to move into the realms of higher frequency. You begin to feel into 4D, the bridge between density and light. Eventually, 5D, the frequency of unity, transparency, and divine embodiment, becomes your way of being. Beyond that, I can't say with certainty. I've heard the stories, I've received glimpses. I don't know which states I've experienced consciously in this body. Still, I believe what lies beyond 5D is radiant, exquisite, a realm of pure coherence, where you no longer perceive yourself as separate from love, from truth, or from each other. Mark Twain once described what happens when you put red and white fire ants together in a jar. If left alone, they coexist peacefully. Now shake that jar, and they'll turn on one another, fighting furiously, unaware that it's not the other ant that's the problem, but the one who shook the jar. That's 3D consciousness, plain and simple. We've been provoked, shaken, and manipulated into conflict in an ant jar. All the same, our natural state, the one we access as we rise, is collaborative, loving, and authentically sovereign. That's what 5D begins to restore. 5D is not perfection or fantasy, but alignment. You are well on your way into shedding trauma and ego. You act not from survival, but from service, not from tribalism, but from truth. You're no longer in this jar for your benefit. You're in it for the whole. The moment you start seeing through this lens, expanding your heart past your personal wounds, you've stepped into the threshold of ascended beingness. No robes, no rules. The basis of real spirituality is to never believe something simply because you're told it's true. Spirituality without discernment is just another cult. Blind faith, especially in this age, is not a virtue, it's a vulnerability. Truth isn't found through dogma, it's uncovered through relentless inquiry. When I research historical timelines, I know how corrupted the records are. I don't take a single source at face value. I triangulate, I keep digging, I listen to lived accounts, and I cross-examine the distortions. Even people on the same side will have completely different versions of events. I look for the patterns beneath the noise. That's how I approximate truth. Even then, I leave room to be wrong. The hum of coherence. Everything must be taken with a grain of salt. Whether it comes from a psychic, a spirit guide, a religious figure, a news anchor, a truth leader, an ascended master, or a politician, no one is exempt. The only real test is your inner resonance. When you've trained yourself to listen energetically, you start to feel it, the hum of coherence or the static of deception. If something doesn't land, doesn't vibrate in alignment with your system, pause. Don't reject it outright, but don't swallow it either. You can always say, I'll give that one a 70% for now. I'll keep it on the table, but I won't build my house on it. Most of the time, the information we're being fed is a hybrid, a cocktail of half-truth and hidden spin. It's not just the mainstream media that distorts. The alternative world has caught up fast in the disinformation game. Eventually, when we emerge from this collective delusion, we'll look back at the narratives we believed and say, wait, I bought that? I followed that? Hopefully, we'll laugh. Until then, stay on guard, stay open, but skeptical, curious, but discerning. If something resonates, hold it loosely. If it doesn't, don't force it. You'll know in time. The bear told me so. Take flat Earth. The debate is never ending, and each side is convinced the other is deluded. There's disinformation on both ends, and that alone tells me one thing. We don't yet have the full picture. I once received a clairvoyant image of the Earth, clear as day. It's illustrated in my book, A Tale of Running Bear, published by Aurelian Press, a story given to me word for word by a visiting bear. Yes, a bear. Yes, I was just as surprised as you might be. I received it in full presence, and the image matched the dome-like descriptions of some flat earth theorists. I don't cling to that image, but I hold it as a possibility. The point isn't who's right. The point is, don't accept anything outright. Examine your belief structures. Peel them back. Revisit what you were taught in school, in church, or in textbooks. Because nearly all of it is false, or at least incomplete. The historical narrative we've been fed is a hall of mirrors. Everything deserves scrutiny. Most people don't want to do that work. They want comfort. They want something easy to believe so they can carry on with their day. I get it. Life is hard enough. All the same, when you outsource your discernment, you surrender your integrity. You start walking someone else's path in someone else's shoes. Truth isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility. Once you claim that responsibility, you start to see the world not just for what it is, but for what it was meant to be. There's so much falsity surrounding us that nearly everything must be put under that microscope. Not because we're paranoid, but because we've been so thoroughly lied to. Most people don't want to do that kind of investigation. They want peace, routine, predictability. They want to live their lives, take things as they come, and assume the system is designed to take care of them. When they hear something on the news or pronounced by an expert or authority figure, they accept it. No questions asked, no deep dive, no spiritual or intellectual discernment. They trust the delivery and never examine the motive. That's where the danger lies. Jane says, "Do you think that's because they're worn out from a system that is designed to exhaust them?" I say, I don't think exhaustion is the full picture. I think it's more about distraction. They're distracted by day jobs, side hustles, digital noise. They're distracted by trying to be the perfect parent, whatever that means. There's this relentless expectation to perform, to get the kids to school, to soccer, to ballet, to tutoring, to birthday parties, all while holding a full-time job, maintaining friendships, managing the household, preparing meals, staying in shape, staying informed, staying sane. Of course, they're tired. More than that, they've been pulled in so many directions that they forget to go inward. Then comes the financial trap. For many, survival requires 2 incomes just to keep the lights on. We're still told to keep up with the neighborhood, the school rankings, the cars, the brand of jeans your kid wears. It's a treadmill built by design, a well-oiled machine of distraction. Is it any wonder that people collapse on the couch at night and zone out to mindless television? They've been conditioned to think that getting off the treadmill equals failure. Maybe what they really need is something to shake themselves awake. Straddling worlds. There are many competing theories about where this planet is heading and what spiritual ascension really entails. Interdimensional experiencers like Alex Collier, who relays messages from the Andromedans, have said that Earth is moving into 4D. According to his transmission, some of us didn't ascend to 5D at all. We arrived here from higher dimensions like 11D, only to be funneled downward into density. Others say that those vibrating below 4D won't be able to come along. Dolores Cannon spoke of 2 Earths, a vibrational split where one Earth continues in 3D consciousness and the other moves upward into 5D and beyond. There are theories of dimensional divergence, etheric suitcases, and spaceships waiting for the spiritually prepped. I'll refine this into what resonates for me, and maybe it's what any remaining belief structures allows me to grasp. Dimensional realities are layered, not linear. They coexist right here on Earth. Your access to them is determined by your vibration. If you're dense, fearful, disconnected, still operating from lack, you can't perceive the others. You'll feel alone. That doesn't mean they aren't there. What I know with certainty is that we're not all developing at the same pace. We're undergoing a planetary shift, yes. We're simultaneously experiencing personal frequency recalibrations. Some are rising, some are resisting, some are waking up slowly, some in a flash, some not at all. I've wondered what this means for the ones we love. Are some of us staying while others go? Are we truly separating into vibrational worlds? If so, can we really leave others behind? Personally, I can't. Even though I've renounced old contracts, something in me refuses to abandon anyone if I can help it. I'll keep showing up for the stragglers. I'll keep throwing lifelines, because this awakening is too important to keep to ourselves. For now, the window is still open. We're already in the transition. The planetary alignments are signaling radical shifts. The real age of Aquarius has begun, not just astrologically, but spiritually. It's becoming harder and harder to ignore the split. The illusions are crumbling, the veils are thinning. The Q phenomenon awakened a lot of people, not just politically, but energetically. It sparked curiosity. It turned people into questioners. With that came a rise in love for humanity and spiritual searching, and a desire for something real. I believe this momentum will accelerate. More will be revealed. More will be offered. More souls will be given a clear chance to choose. As I have said, what it comes down to is the choice. Not a party line, not a label, not a role, but a soul-level choice. A choice between love and fear, between spiritual courage and numbed-out compliance, between clarity and comfort, between living awake or staying in the trance. We want everyone to come. We're holding the light for that. Not everyone will be able to sustain the frequency. Some won't make the shift, not because they're bad people, but because they're still clinging to what dims them. Addiction, ego, victimhood, spiritual bypassing, lies, narcissism, denial, or the refusal to look at truth. Jane says, I think that anybody reading this book, without a shadow of a doubt, is on this time-space reality as a leader of whatever their gifts are and what brings them joy. So we're not actually talking about the people who are reading or listening to this book, but the people they love. We're talking about the children we love who are not yet consciously aware of the dark and therefore are still being manipulated by things like mainstream media. We're talking about friends who are good people who are kind and compassionate and funny. They are generous or giving and would give you the shirt off their back. I respond, I would say that by living in compassion, they've already chosen. Jane responds, we've just had a flood and now many of these people are homeless. They're not vibrating any different to us, or we're not vibrating any different to them in these moments. They are all for humanity as they share whatever they've got. I respond, those people are going to get swept up in this and come along. The people who won't will likely be those who have deliberately chosen to stay on the dark side of things. Jane responds, I'm not a fan of segregation. The only thing I can see being good about that is if it's vibrational, is that those who have chosen to deliberately and consciously play for the dark, their vibration won't be swept up in this net of going to somewhere fabulous. It's like a cleaning mechanism. I respond, yes, there doesn't need to be any fear. When someone's holding on to victimhood or self-pity or unresolved anger, or if they're doing harm, intentionally or not, it doesn't necessarily make them evil. It does mean they're aligning with darkness, however, not light. This is not a binary of good and bad. It's about trajectory. It's about choice. True awakening involves growth, emotional responsibility, joy, discernment, and a willingness to care for others, not from martyrdom, but from coherence. It can't be trauma-based. It can't be ego-based. It has to come from love. If you're still carrying trauma, it doesn't mean you're doomed, but it does mean you need to heal in whatever form that looks like. Therapy, somatic work, spiritual processing, past life regression, inner child healing, you name it, you need to do whatever helps you release the pain. Because unhealed trauma leaves you vulnerable to manipulation. It makes you easy to target, easy to gaslight, easy to enslave. When you do the work to transmute your wounds, you begin to access what's already yours, the light, the clarity, the joy, the truth that's been waiting on the other side. There's a banquet of grace available, but you can't taste it until you drop what's poisoning you. So the question becomes, are you ready to let it go? Are you willing to awaken? More than that, are you ready to help others rise? Thank you for listening to this excerpt.